In all the vastness of space and time, one quiet, improbable story leads to you. 14 billion years, condensed into the next few minutes. This is the origin of humanity. Before there were stars, before there was time as we know it, everything that would ever exist was gathered into a single, silent point. Then nearly 14 billion years ago, that point unfolded. Space itself began to stretch. Light burst outward, and in the darkness, the first ingredients of everything, including you, were quietly born. Billions of years passed. Clouds of dust and gas drifted together, spinning into stars and worlds. Around one ordinary star, on the edge of one ordinary galaxy, a small blue planet cooled and settled. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was born, a fragile sphere of rock and water, waiting for something remarkable to begin. For a long time, Earth was silent. Then in the shallow, warm seas, something extraordinary happened. Simple molecules began to copy themselves. Life had begun. For nearly 3 billion years, life stayed small. Single cells drifting, dividing, evolving. Slowly, patiently, they were laying the foundation for every creature that would ever swim, crawl, fly, or walk this earth. Life grew bolder. It learned to breathe, to see, to move. And then, around 400 million years ago, a small fish did something no creature had ever done. It crawled out of the water and onto the shore. From that first brave step, forests rose, dinosaurs walked, mammals scurried in the shadows. Life had claimed the land. Now let us zoom in, past the oceans, past the continents, to a warm land in the south. This is Africa, green in places, dry in others, ancient and alive. Here, deep in the branches of the family tree of life, one small line of primates was about to begin a story unlike any other. Our story, it begins here. Around 7 million years ago, our earliest ancestors lived high in the African forests. They had strong arms for swinging, clever eyes for judging distance, and fingers that could grip a branch or a piece of fruit. They were not yet human, but they were curious. They watched the world, and the world was beginning to change. The climate shifted, forests thinned, vast open grasslands spread across Africa. Slowly, our ancestors climbed down from the trees and stepped into a new world of tall grass and distant horizons. It was dangerous out there. Predators watched from the shade, but it was also a world full of possibility and of long, open paths waiting to be walked. Something wonderful happened on those grasslands. Little by little, over hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors began to stand upright. Walking on two legs freed the hands. It let them see farther, travel farther, carry things, stone, a stick, a child. By around 4 million years ago, we were walking the earth on 2 feet. We were becoming human. With free hands came new ideas. Our ancestors picked up stones, not just to throw, but to shape. They struck one rock against another and made a sharp edge. Suddenly they could cut meat, crack bone, dig roots. It was the first tool, the first invention, the very beginning of technology, a story that would one day lead all the way to spaceships. Then came fire. At first they feared it, as all animals do. But little by little, our ancestors learned to carry it, to feed it, to keep it alive. Around 1 million years ago, fire became ours. It warmed us in the cold, protected us from the dark, and cooked our food, giving our bodies more energy and our brains room to grow. Fire changed everything. Now, when the sun went down, we did not scatter. We stayed. We gathered close, in a bright circle in the darkness. Around that fire, we shared food, we shared warmth. We looked at each other's faces in the flickering light, and quite possibly, this is where we first began to share something new, the very first stories. Then about 300,000 years ago, in Africa, a new kind of human appeared. Slimmer of body, rounder of skull, with a brain wired for imagination, for language, for wonder. Us, Homo Sapiens, the wise human. We were not the strongest creature on Earth. We were not the fastest, but we could think in symbols, and that would change everything. We spoke, not just in grunts and gestures, but in words. Words that could describe things not present, things not yet real. Words for yesterday and tomorrow. Words for danger, for love, for the invisible. Language stitched us together. A small band could now plan, teach, remember, and dream as one mind. This was our secret power. Deep inside caves by the light of small flames, our ancestors reached out and pressed their hands against the stone. They drew the animals they hunted, the beasts they feared, the world they lived in. This was more than decoration. This was symbol. This was meaning. For the first time on Earth, a creature was looking at the world and making it into art. We began to bury our dead. We laid them gently in the earth. We placed flowers, tools, and beads beside them. We marked the grave with stones. This simple act tells us something profound. Our ancestors understood that a life had ended and that it had mattered. They grieved. They remembered. They imagined, perhaps, that the story did not end here. Around 70,000 years ago, small groups of humans began to walk out of Africa. They followed rivers. They followed coastlines. They followed the horizon. Not because they had a map, but because they were curious, and because over generations, one valley led to another. In time, their descendants would step onto every continent on Earth. They crossed deserts and mountains. They pushed north into lands of ice and long winters, wrapping themselves in furs. They built boats and sailed to islands they could not see from the shore. Wherever they went, they carried fire, tools, language, and stories. In just a few thousand generations, humans reached almost every corner of the planet. For most of our story, we lived as hunters and gatherers. We knew every plant, every animal, every season. We hunted together, often in small groups, using spears, traps, and a shared plan. Even the great mammoths of the Ice Age were within our reach, not because we were stronger than them, but because we could think and speak and act as one. Then about 12,000 years ago, in warm valleys around the world, we tried something new. We took the seeds of wild grasses, wheat, rice, corn, and we planted them. We watered them. We waited. And when they grew, we harvested more than we could gather in the wild. For the first time, we did not follow food. Food began to follow us. We also brought animals into our lives: sheep, goats, cattle, pigs, and, long before any of them, the wolf, who became the dog, our first true companion. With farms and herds, we no longer needed to move with the seasons. We could stay in one place. We could build. We could plan a life not just for tomorrow, but for years to come. And so the first villages rose. Simple huts of wood, mud, and thatch, gathered close together. Children ran between them. Smoke curled from cooking fires. Neighbors knew each other by name. From these small clusters of homes came something new in human history: community that lasted generation after generation in a single place we could call our own. Then came a small miracle. We learned to press marks into clay, to scratch signs into stone, and to make those marks stand for words. Writing was born. Now a thought could outlive the person who thought it. A story could travel across seas. A law, a love letter, a recipe, anything at all, could reach across time. Memory itself became eternal. Villages grew into towns, towns grew into cities. We built walls and temples, markets and roads. We forged metal. We measured the stars. We asked bigger and bigger questions about the world, about ourselves, about what it all might mean. In just a few thousand years, we went from small bands around a fire to civilizations that lit up the night. And yet, for all our differences, every language, every custom, every color of skin, we all share the same beginning. Every human being alive today can trace their story back to those first small groups in Africa. We are one family, one long journey, one species, still writing its story, under the same sky, on the same fragile, beautiful blue world. Thank you for watching. We are one species. We share one story, and the Earth is our home for us all.